The frame slipped from my mother's hands, clattering to the hardwood floor. She didn't even bother to pick it up. My 8-year-old son, Owen's carefully crafted gift, a handmade picture frame he'd spent weeks painting blue and decorating with tiny seashells we'd collected together, lay discarded like trash while everyone's attention immediately shifted back to my niece. "Emma, show Grandma what you got from Santa," my sister Rachel encouraged, as if my son hadn't just been standing there, his small shoulders slumping and eyes filling with tears. The Christmas music playing through my parents' expensive sound system suddenly felt deafening. The beautiful tree with its color-coordinated ornaments, the perfectly arranged presents beneath it, the elegant decorations throughout the house, it all blurred as I watched my son struggle to hide his disappointment. This wasn't the first time. It wasn't even the 10th time. But something inside me, something that had been bending for years, finally snapped. My name is Violet. I'm 27 and a single mom. This is the story of how I burned bridges to build something better. For 8 years, I'd watched my family systematically diminish my son. The pattern had been established from the moment I announced my pregnancy at 19. Unplanned, unwed, with a boyfriend who disappeared at the first mention of responsibility. I was the disappointment, the cautionary tale, the black sheep who'd thrown her life away, while my older sister Rachel had done everything right. She went to college, married an investment banker, had 2 perfectly spaced children, and bought a house in the suburbs. My younger brother Jared had followed my father into law. And then there was me, the family failure. What had begun as disapproval of my life choices had morphed over time into something uglier, something that now targeted my innocent child. My mother's backhanded compliments, my father's lectures about financial responsibility while he lavished gifts on my sister's children, the not-so-subtle comparisons at every family gathering. I'd tried to shield Owen from it, making excuses for forgotten birthdays and excluded invitations. "Grandpa was probably busy," I'd explain when he didn't show up to Owen's soccer games. Grandma must have mixed up the dates when his school performance wasn't attended, all while watching my parents rearrange their schedules for my niece and nephew's events. Just yesterday, I'd received a text from Rachel. "Mom wants to know what Owen wants for Christmas. She's already finished shopping for the others." It was December 23rd. The annual family Christmas gathering was today, and she was just now asking about Owen's gift. As I watched my son's gift lying neglected on the floor, I felt a surge of rage that burned away years of compliance. "Mom," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "Owen spent weeks making that frame for you. Don't you have anything to say about it?" The room fell silent. My mother looked at me with surprise, as if a piece of furniture had suddenly spoken. "It's very nice," she said dismissively. "Now Emma was telling me—" "No," I interrupted, standing up. "Not this time. Owen, go get your coat, please." "But Mom," he started. "Now, sweetheart." When he'd left the room, I turned to face my family. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my voice remained calm. "For years, I've watched you treat my son like he's less important than everyone else in this family. I've made excuses for you, tried to shield him from it, hoped that eventually you'd see what a wonderful, kind, brilliant child he is, but you've never even tried." "Violet, you're overreacting," my father said, finally putting down his newspaper. "Am I? When was the last time you remembered his birthday without being reminded? When have you ever shown up to one of his school events? When have you ever shown him the same attention and love you show his cousins?" Rachel scoffed. "Just because we don't coddle him—" "Coddle him?" I laughed bitterly. "Is that what you call basic human decency? He's a child who has done nothing wrong except be born to me instead of one of you." My mother stood, her face flushed with anger. "We have always welcomed you both into our home." "Welcomed. You tolerate us. There's a difference, and I'm done subjecting my son to your conditional love." I picked up the frame Owen had made, the one my mother had so carelessly discarded. "He painted it blue because it's my favorite color. He glued these shells on it because we collected them together last summer. A trip none of you even knew about because none of you ever ask about our lives. He's thoughtful and observant and deserves so much better than what you've given him." Jared, who had been silent until now, cleared his throat. "Vi, you're making a scene." "A scene?" I turned to him, tears stinging my eyes. Where was this concern when Dad forgot to invite Owen to the family camping trip? Or when Mom accidentally left him off the family Christmas card? Your silence has been just as hurtful as their actions. Owen returned with his coat, his eyes wide and confused. I took his hand. "We're leaving and we won't be back," I told my stunned family. "Merry Christmas." The drive home was quiet. I could feel Owen watching me, processing what had happened. We had driven to my parents' house in the suburbs that morning, and now we were heading back to our apartment across town, about a 30-minute drive in the holiday traffic. "I'm sorry about your frame, sweetheart," I finally said, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. "It's okay, Mom," he replied softly. "I can make another one. For us." His simple resilience broke my heart all over again. When we got home, I made hot chocolate and we sat under a blanket watching Christmas movies. But I could tell Owen was subdued, trying to understand the day's events. That night, after he'd gone to bed, I sat at our small kitchen table staring at my phone. The screen lit up with messages from my family. First angry, then confused. I ignored them all and instead opened my contacts to Lucas, my supervisor at the bookstore where I worked. He'd been inviting us to his family's Christmas celebration for years, and I'd always declined, feeling obligated to spend the holiday with my biological family. But not anymore. I was done with obligation, done with hoping for change, done with watching my son's heart break over and over. My thumb hovered over Lucas's name. This wasn't just about finding somewhere to spend Christmas. This was about actively choosing a different path, one where Owen would be valued, one where kindness wasn't conditional. I pressed call. "Violet?" Lucas answered, surprise evident in his voice. "Everything okay?" "I was wondering if that invitation to your family Christmas is still open," I said, my voice wavering slightly. There was a pause. "Of course it is. We'd love to have you both. Is something wrong?" The genuine concern in his voice, concern I'd never heard from my own family when it came to Owen, brought tears to my eyes. "I'll explain tomorrow. What time should we come?" Christmas Day with Lucas's family was a revelation. Lucas picked us up that morning and drove us to his parents' home across town. His parents treated Owen like any other child there, with warmth, interest, and genuine affection. His mother praised Owen's manners and asked him about school. His father taught him how to play chess. Lucas's nieces and nephews included him in their games without hesitation. When it came time for presents, there was a pile waiting for Owen. Books Lucas had selected, knowing Owen's reading preferences, a science kit from his parents, hand-knitted mittens from his grandmother. The contrast to our experience with my family couldn't have been more stark. These people, who had no biological connection to us, showed more love and consideration in one day than my family had in 8 years. Meanwhile, my phone continued buzzing with messages from my family. My mother's texts evolved from indignant. "I can't believe you would embarrass us like this," to manipulative. "Your father's blood pressure is through the roof because of your scene." Rachel alternated between angry tirades and tearful pleas. My father attempted to lure us back with financial incentives, offering to start a college fund for Owen, something he'd done for his other grandchildren years ago. I didn't respond to any of them. This wasn't a temporary tantrum to force an apology. This was a final separation from people who had proven, time and again, that they were incapable of loving my son the way he deserved to be loved. But I wasn't done. Walking away was only the beginning. In January, I submitted my application for the bookstore's management training program, something I'd hesitated to do before, believing my family's narrative that I wasn't capable of more. With Lucas's encouragement, I was accepted, and by March, I was assistant manager with a significant raise. When Owen's birthday came around in April, I used some of my new income to plan a party at the local science museum, inviting his entire class, Lucas and his family, and neighbors who had become friends. I sent formal invitations to my parents, sister, and brother, knowing exactly what would happen. As expected, they didn't show up. But this time, Owen didn't notice their absence. He was too busy being celebrated by people who genuinely cared about him. The next day, I took carefully selected photos from the party. Owen surrounded by friends, blowing out candles on his cake, opening thoughtful gifts, and created a beautiful digital album. I shared it publicly on social media, tagging my family members and writing, "Grateful for the people who choose to be part of Owen's life and celebrate the amazing person he is becoming. Some family is born, but the best family is chosen." I knew my mother's social circle would see it. I knew my father's law partners would see it. I knew Rachel's perfect life facade would be questioned, and I wanted them to feel every bit of what they'd lost through their own choices. The fallout was immediate. My phone exploded with messages from extended family members who had only heard my parents' version of events. They had found my number through the family group chat we had all been part of for years. My mother called in tears, claiming I was deliberately trying to hurt them. My father threatened to cut me out of his will, as if that was supposed to frighten me. "You already cut Owen out of your hearts," I replied in my only response. "There's nothing else you can take from us." In May, Lucas asked me to dinner. Just me, not Owen, for the first time. He had arranged for his sister to babysit Owen at our apartment so we could have an evening to ourselves. "I've wanted to ask you out for years," he admitted over pasta, but the timing never seemed right. By summer, we were dating seriously. Lucas was everything my family couldn't understand: kind, supportive, genuinely interested in both my aspirations and Owen's development. He didn't care that I'd had a child young or that I didn't have a college degree. He saw me for who I was, not for the ways I'd failed to meet some arbitrary standard. When my parents learned about Lucas through social media, where I occasionally posted photos of our outings and activities, they attempted reconciliation again, suddenly interested in meeting this man who had changed me. I recognized their pattern immediately. They wanted to claim connection to our happiness without acknowledging how they'd contributed to our pain. I declined their invitation with a simple email. Owen and I are creating a life with people who valued us even when we had nothing to offer but ourselves. You had 8 years to be part of that life and chose not to be. That choice stands. The following Christmas, we hosted our own gathering. Our apartment was filled with people who genuinely cared about us. Lucas and his family, co-workers who had become friends, parents of Owen's classmates. As I watched Owen open thoughtfully selected gifts, his face alight with joy, surrounded by people who cherished him, I knew I'd made the right decision. The revenge wasn't in the dramatic exit or the returned gifts or the ignored calls. It wasn't even in the public social media posts that exposed their neglect. It was in this, creating a life so full of authentic love and connection that the absence of my biological family was no longer a wound but a faded scar. My parents, sister, and brother lost the privilege of watching Owen grow into the remarkable person he was becoming. They lost the joy of his laughter, the wonder of his curiosity, the warmth of his heart. Their loss, not ours. The final piece fell into place when Lucas proposed the following spring, not just to me, but to Owen as well, getting down on one knee with 2 rings, an engagement ring for me and a family medallion for Owen. "I want us to be a family," he told Owen seriously. "Not to replace your dad, but to be another person in your life who will always be there for you, who will never let you down, who will love you unconditionally." Owen's face as he accepted the medallion, solemn, joyful, secure, was worth every painful holiday, every sleepless night, every difficult decision. We married in the summer, a small ceremony in the bookstore where Lucas and I had worked together for years. His family, now our family, surrounded us with love and acceptance. Owen stood beside us as our best man, his pride evident in every carefully executed responsibility. 2 weeks after the wedding, I received a letter from Jared, the only member of my family who had eventually sent a genuine apology, acknowledging his role in enabling the family's behavior. He wrote that our parents had been devastated by the wedding photos he'd seen online, finally realizing what they'd lost. "They talk about Owen now," he wrote. "They have his school picture on their mantle. Mom keeps saying she wishes she could tell him she's sorry." I showed the letter to Lucas, who squeezed my hand in support but remained silent, letting me make my own decision. I wrote back to Jared with a single paragraph. I'm glad they've reflected on their actions, but Owen isn't a prop they can pick up when it's convenient and discard when it's not. He's a child who deserves consistency and unconditional love. When they're ready to offer that, with actions, not words, we can discuss what a relationship might look like. Until then, we're happy with the family we've chosen. 3 years after we walked out of my parents' house, Owen gave me a Christmas gift, a new handmade picture frame, blue like the one he'd made for my mother, but larger, containing a family photo of the three of us, Owen, Lucas, and me. I kept the shells from that summer, he told me as I unwrapped it, tears in my eyes. I knew someday I'd find the right picture to put them with. That frame sits on our mantel now, surrounded by other family photos. Lucas's parents, his siblings, and their children, close friends who have become family. There are no empty spaces where my biological family should be. We have filled our lives with people who know how to love. That, I believe, is the greatest revenge of all. Not just surviving without those who hurt you, but thriving in their absence, building something beautiful from the wreckage they left behind. My son will grow up knowing his worth is not determined by people who couldn't see his light. He will understand that family is defined by love, not blood, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from those who cannot love you properly to find those who can. As for my parents, they did try to reconnect several times over the years, but I maintained firm boundaries. We did eventually permit a few carefully supervised visits after Owen turned 11, but they never regained the privilege of being significant figures in Owen's life. I made sure Owen had a say in these visits, respecting his feelings and comfort level above all else. Rachel's marriage ultimately ended in divorce when Owen was 12, and it was telling that she suddenly wanted to reconnect with me after that happened. She reached out through Jared, asking if we could meet for coffee, but I insisted any relationship would need to start with a genuine apology to Owen first. Jared did make genuine amends over time, and we now have a cautious but cordial relationship where he visits occasionally and has earned a small place in Owen's life through consistent, respectful behavior. Lucas formally adopted Owen on his 10th birthday, with Owen's enthusiastic consent. The adoption was finalized 3 months later, giving Owen the security of 2 legal parents and cementing our family bond in ways my biological family never could. Owen chose to hyphenate his last name, honoring both his birth identity and his new family connection. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles. Zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.